Thanks.
She gonna sing.
Daddy, why would
all
you
back.
play with
All
us?
of it together in one place.
Five Nights at Freddy's is a franchise with over a decade's worth of content, spanning countless games, books, and now a movie. There's a reason that no matter whose timeline you watch, they all look different. Making a FNAF timeline is not easy. There are so many ways you can interpret this story, and this is mine. So let's start at the beginning. Back in the 70s, a company called Fazbear Entertainment got its start by creating different props and mascot costumes for carnivals, and specifically for something called the Fall Fest. The Fall Fest featured various mascot characters, such as a bird, an elephant, and the most popular of all, Fredbear and Bonnie. These specific mascot costumes were so popular, Fazbear Entertainment opened a dedicated restaurant for them called Fredbear's Family Diner, featuring the same Fredbear and Bonnie mascot costumes from the Fall Fest. What Fazbear Entertainment didn't account for, though, was one of their animatronics from the Fall Fest going rogue, ending in a giant fire, with most of everything from the Fall Fest being destroyed. The specifics about the animatronic that went rogue and the fire are unknown and will likely be revealed next year in FNAF's next big release.
I have $5 I'm willing to give away if anyone knows what this is. For $5, can you tell me what this is? Do you know what it is?
What is it?
Can you tell me what this is?
No.
No?
No.
Do you know what it is?
I don't know.
Although we don't know much about how this fire occurred, we do know that after the fire, Fazbear Entertainment started phasing out of the mascot costume era. They needed something new. The two men who helped found Fazbear Entertainment, William Afton and Henry Emily, stepped up to the plate. William Afton was mostly the businessman of the two, handling all of the money, while Henry was the more creative one, with him being in charge of building most of the animatronics and props for the company. With the Fall Fest era of the company coming to a close, they were only left with Fredbear's Family Diner, the standalone restaurant created for the Fredbear and Bonnie characters. In order to replace the mascot versions of Fredbear and Bonnie, Henry went to work on new versions of the characters, eventually creating the new Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, the same characters but with new designs and new suits. Henry called them Springlock suits. These suits are able to double as both an animatronic and a suit that the employees could wear. To switch the suit from animatronic mode to suit mode, the employees could use a hand crank to pull back the animatronic parts, leaving room for them to climb inside. The spring locks that were helping to hold back those animatronic parts were very sensitive though, and with even a little bit of moisture, the spring locks could potentially snap shut, crushing and killing whoever was inside. But if that ended up happening, Fazbear Entertainment had some common sense procedures set in place.
In case that the spring lock come loose while you were wearing a suit, please try to maneuver away from populated areas before bleeding out, as to not ruin the customer experience.
Fredbear's Family Diner ended up being super successful for William and Henry, so much so that other companies tried replicating it. Another company proceeded to rip off Fazbear Entertainment's old mascot characters by creating their own animatronic versions of them. The leader of the group was Ned Bear, a direct copy of Fredbear, followed by a hippo, an elephant, and a frog, all characters from the Fall Fest, and all with slightly different designs to avoid copyright issues. But while the rival company was able to replicate the designs, they could not replicate Henry's state-of-the-art technology. Their robots were poorly made and had to have giant batteries with exposed wires on stage with them. Naturally, the rival company failed and ended up being bought out by Fazbear Entertainment. With all of the success from Fredbear's Family Diner, William and Henry decided to branch out and create more characters for a new restaurant. In 1983, William and Henry opened Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, featuring Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. With the opening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, Pizza, Fazbear Entertainment was experiencing success like they've never seen before. But with 2 restaurants now open at the same time, more success also meant more work for William and Henry. The duo were so wrapped up in work that they started neglecting their own families. William was the father of 3 kids, the eldest, Michael, the crying child, and Elizabeth. The crying child has yet to have a 100% confirmed name, so for this video, he will just be called the crying child. Meanwhile, Henry had 1 kid, a daughter named Charlie. The business partners spent most of their days working, so they both created different ways of taking care of their kids. Henry was the robotics genius, so he used his talents to create a new animatronic to watch Charlie for him. It was called the security puppet. This animatronic would sit by the door of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and make sure that Charlie wasn't able to leave the building. This made it so Charlie could play at the restaurant while Henry worked, without Henry having to worry about her leaving the building or getting kidnapped. The robot was linked directly to a green bracelet that Charlie was wearing. If Charlie, wearing the green bracelet, tried leaving the building, the security puppet would spring into action. William, on the other hand, was the businessman of the company. He cared more about making money, but also saving money. Naturally, he decided to just force his eldest son, Michael, to babysit while he was at work. Michael was mostly in charge of babysitting the crying child. The crying child didn't have many friends, but he did have a close relationship with his plushies. These plushies were of characters from his favorite show, Fredbear and Friends, Fazbear Entertainment's newest cartoon, featuring Fredbear, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. The crying child's favorite character, though, was Fredbear. He especially loved his Fredbear plushie. Although he loved the plushie version of the characters, the animatronics would soon become a different story. One day, while visiting Fredbear's family diner, the crying child saw something that would scar him for the rest of his life. While wandering the restaurant, he walked by the employees only room, where an employee accidentally left the door open. Inside the room was his father, William Afton, helping another employee into a spring Bonnie suit. But through the eyes of the crying child, this looked like someone was literally being stuffed into an animatronic suit. The crying child was so young that he wasn't educated on how the mascot characters worked, so seeing a human be put inside of one terrified him. When a child experiences something traumatic, their brain naturally tries finding ways to deal with that trauma. The crying child's way of dealing with his trauma was by creating an imaginary friend. This imaginary friend took the form of the object he loved the most, his Fredbear plushie. His new imaginary friend Fredbear followed him wherever he went, shape-shifting into flowers, hiding behind cars, and in the sewers, with nobody being able to see him except for the crying child. When the crying child was overwhelmed, the plushie would talk to him and try to calm him down. Even when the plushie wasn't around, it was still able to speak to him because it lived in his mind. While the crying child was dealing with the trauma of seeing what he thinks was someone being stuffed into a suit, his brother Michael was only making it worse. Michael knew about what happened with his younger brother and used it against him. Every day while babysitting the crying child, Michael would put on a Foxy mask, hide somewhere in the house, and jump scare his little brother.
From the pizzeria to your living room, you no longer have to wait to sing and dance with Fredbear and Friends. Weeknights at 8/7 Central, only on